So welcome once again.
Thank you, Barb. Can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up in the back. We're not going to use microphones tonight. I never need one, and I especially don't think we need one tonight. We're so grateful you're here with us tonight to celebrate Ken and to reflect on how he shaped Just Harvest over nearly 4 decades. It's an honor to sit next to Ken. I have my tissues present. I said if I can make it through the welcome, I'll be good. It may be harder than I thought. It's an honor for me to sit next to Ken up here. His leadership has impacted not just Harvest, but the broader food and economic justice movement in Pittsburgh, and left a mark on so many of us who've had the privilege to work alongside him. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather. I started at Just Harvest as a recent graduate, full of idealism and wanting to change the world. Over the years, I've had the privilege of growing with Just Harvest, taking on many different roles, and learning from many of you how to do this important work. Tomorrow, I have the privilege of stepping into the role of our Interim Executive Director. So tonight's conversation isn't just a look back, it's also kind of a passing of the torch. We'll talk about what's changed, what stayed true, and what the work ahead demands of all of us. So Ken, let's start from the beginning. You joined us in 1986 as one of the first full-time staff when Just Harvest emerged from the Hunger Action Coalition. Tell us about those beginning days, and when you reflect on those early days, what drove you?
What drove me? So I should start by acknowledging that part of what drove me is that I was only part-time at Hunger Action Coalition, and I really wanted a full-time job. If my math is right, that was 900 paychecks ago. So that has continued to drive me. But the mission drives me also. The work that we were doing at Hunger Action Coalition in the mid-1980s was challenging and exciting, and at a time as urgent as today, when the crisis was really upon us. And in 1986, Hunger Action Coalition's leadership decided that it was not tenable to do both assertive, meaningful policy advocacy on the root causes of hunger under the same roof as work doing direct services to individual hungry families. Whether that was accurate or not, all of us at what became Just Harvest were driven by the idea that the way to solve problems is to address their causes. The idea that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is not, it's just common sense. And what drove us at those origins was the common sense that was, I think, perfectly articulated by Francis Moore LePay back in those days, who said, hunger is not caused by a scarcity of food. It is caused by a scarcity of democracy. And that's been the driving lesson all along, and it continues to be today when democracy is as much at risk as we've seen it in my career. So that's what drives us. Public policy is the key to making sure that people in this country and in this community have enough to eat and don't have to fret about where their next meal is coming from. We can't charity our way out of this problem, as important as charity is. And if that doesn't continue to drive us, we won't continue to thrive.
It's going to continue to drive us. I can assure you all that it will. So after nearly 40 years, you've seen Just Harvest grow and adapt through so much. What are you most proud of?
Yeah, so they gave me these questions ahead of time, so proud is such an odd word because it has this implication of individual achievement, and everything we do here is a collective effort. I am proud to have been a part of all the things we've accomplished. I'm proud to have been a part of the successful struggle 38 years ago to get the city of Pittsburgh public school system to have a school breakfast program. We were one of the last big cities in America to do that. We did that because of the work of Hunger Action and Just Harvest. I'm proud of the work that we did together to win some of the most critical improvements in customer service at the state's Department of Human Services. It's problematic for people who are applying for SNAP benefits, applying for Medicaid, changing any information about them, updating things, renewing benefits. But 40 years ago, it was astonishingly worse. And one of our great accomplishments together was getting them to answer the phone when it rings. And so when I talked a couple of minutes ago about the things that are common sense, that's what it comes down to. We were the ones together that got the department to start a call center to handle calls from clients when the phone rang. It's not rocket science, but it's really, really important. So I'm proud of that stuff. I'm proud of helping to steward the organization through its growth. I'm proud of what we've learned together about this problem. When I think back and look at some of the photos where I had more hair, I'm reminded of how naive we were in some ways. That the notions that we had that we were going to be the lobbyists for poor people, or we were going to empower people in need to speak up for themselves. Yes, but it's way, way, way more complicated than that. And the daily grind of building both an institution that can stand the test of time and a movement that people can join, that people can feel a part of, that can broadly share the power that we all have. That's the work that I hope we're all proud of.
Hear, hear.
I knew when we drafted that question that it would not be an individual answer and it would be collective, and I'm grateful that you took it there. I knew you would. You've kind of started talking about this, but what makes Just Harvest different from other organizations that work to end hunger?
So one of the things that we're proud of together is that there's a book by a close friend, Andy Fisher, the former head of the Community Food Security Coalition nationally, wrote a book called Big Hunger, in which he cites Just Harvest as one of the models of innovation within the anti-hunger movement. And he says very nice things about the work that our organization does on root causes. But I think what he taps into that I appreciate the most is that we're innovative, but we're not different from lots of other organizations. There are tremendous numbers of really creative, really effective organizations doing this kind of work around the country, and we've stolen some of their best ideas very creatively. We have a combination of idealism and pragmatism. We have a way of doing things that inherently honors coalition building as an approach to everything we do, partly because we know we can't accomplish all that much on our own, and partly because the building of those organizational bridges, the development of partners and allies and friends in all different kinds of settings, some much more marginalized than us, some much more powerful than us. That approach to coalition building makes us far more powerful than we could be otherwise. And I think it's the determination, part of what makes us, if not unique, then at least sort of unexpected, maybe not even unusual, is that sense of getting other people involved and staking some of our work in what they're committed to, so that we're in an active partnership together, is what builds power institutionally in the long run.
Absolutely, that's something I've always admired about Ken and his approach, and I can hope to continue to build and deepen those relationships to help us move forward. You know, this work has always been deeply rooted in community. Can you tell us about some of the people or some of the partners that have shaped your thinking or made a lasting impact on Just Harvest's journey?
Yeah.
No.
Look to your left, look to your right, but mostly to your left. The people in this room and the other people who are not in this room tonight, but who have supported us all along the way in a million different ways, are the reason that we've been able to accomplish what we have. You know, Isaac Newton said, "If I've seen further, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants." And I feel very much that sentiment in thinking about my own career path. What Just Harvest started with as the legacy from Hunger Action Coalition was not just some credibility, but it was the amazing hard work of people who were far more creative and knowledgeable and skilled than I was then, certainly by a million miles, but more wise and insightful and strategic than I am now. And we're privileged that some of them are in the room. I want to give a particular shout out to Johnny Rabinowitz. My co-director for more than 20 years, and without whom we would not have gotten off the ground, right? There would not be a Just Harvest. I need some tissues. There's a few other people there too that are here with us. My friend Barb Murrock told me about a job opening at Hunger Action, and I am immensely grateful for the recommendation. As it turns out, that recommendation was made to Hunger Action's board president, Joyce Rothermel, who interviewed me for that very same opening. And had the wisdom to hire me. And my wife and son are here. My wife, for those of you who don't know, Judy Ruskowski, is a great organizer and a terrific strategic thinker, and somebody whose dedication to a just society is exceeded only by her patience with me. So I'm very grateful for what I've learned from you over many, many years. I want to give a shout out to current staff and former staff who are here in the room. If you can raise your hands. We've got some current and former board members in the room, and I want to acknowledge your amazing service to the organization over long periods of time. Raise your hands. Joyce, of course, is only clapping for other people. And I also just wanted to take a minute, and I'm not going to get through this too well. To thank people who aren't with us anymore. 40 years is a long time to be in this work, and there's a lot of people I miss very much who taught me a lot. And I made a list of their names, and I'm not going to be able to get through reading them, so we'll say something in an upcoming Just Harvest newsletter. But they know who they are. Yeah, I'm not even going to try.
Do you want me to?
Sure.
Can I? Can I? Ann Conley, Dick Miller, and John Robeson. Board members like Mary Elizabeth McCarthy, Don Rampola, Jane Beckard, and Sister Betty Sundry. Mentors like Dorothy, thank you. Visionary creator of Allegheny County's WIC program, Jim Stevenson, founder of Pennsylvania's first statewide anti-hunger advocacy group, and City Councilman and State Senator Jimmy Farlow. I think this is such a powerful reminder that real change doesn't happen in isolation, and it takes trust, time, and people who are willing to show up time and time again. It's one of the things that I've taken to heart as I've stepped into this role. And I just want to say that I'm able to step into this role and start on such a strong foot because of the internal support that we have with our team. I've started, there are still people here with me who have started before me and with me. And I'm super grateful for everyone at Just Harvest, and especially those long-term relationships, because we couldn't make this transition without you all. So I'm looking forward to it, but I just wanted to thank you all. Okay. We're going to shift gears and talk about the big picture and the state of things a little bit. Ken, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the discourse of poverty and hunger and how has it changed and not changed since the founding of Just Harvest.
I think there's a lot of forces at work in the community and in the world that have helped to change the discourse, and so I don't want to overstate Just Harvest's influence over the discourse, but I don't want to understate it either. We played a part, an important part here in Allegheny County, in helping larger and larger and larger numbers of people to understand that the root cause argument is common sense, that it's an inevitable result of the frustration of trying to take the path of least resistance and charity our way out of a problem like systematic economic injustice. When we embarked on this work, we talked about the closing of supermarkets in individual low-income neighborhoods. And when we talked about it, we called it the closing of supermarkets in low-income neighborhoods, which was not particularly catchy, but it was easily understood. But we called it that because no one had yet coined the phrase food deserts, much less food apartheid. And for us to have been a witness to that change in vocabulary, to that change in the level of community understanding, and to have advanced that argument before there were even words to describe it. Getting the city government here in Pittsburgh to think about that problem as a problem for the very first time, thanks to then City Councilman Jimmy Furlow, who helped to engineer alongside us the first efforts by the city government to deal with the problem. They were not particularly successful in changing the direction of a competitive retail food industry, or changing the giant trends in the industrial world of agriculture and agribusiness that many in our community are victims of. But changing that vocabulary, changing the idea that this was just something that happens, to this is the result of economic decisions, it's the result of public policy decisions, that other public policy decisions can, if not reverse that trend, can at least mitigate it, can develop innovative solutions. And what we discovered over time was that some of the development of those innovative solutions meant doing it ourselves. And the emergence of our Fresh Access program, handling electronic transactions at what's now 15 different farmers markets in and around the county, together with our partners. We handle thousands of transactions, both SNAP benefits and commercial credit and debit cards. Thousands of transactions every farmers market season, and there's one near you should go and try. So some of it we had to do ourselves, some of it was about changing government policy, some of it was about educating the community, some of it was about changing vocabulary, some of it was about being part of a trend and learning from the creativity of other people in other communities and other activists working on these same sorts of problems. So we didn't invent electronic transactions at farmers markets, and in fact our earliest attempts to do it, were almost as big a failure as my first fundraising campaign at Hunger Action Coalition. Unfortunately, only a few of you know that, but which which Heather actually was kind enough to not fire me for. What was the question? How has the landscape changed? Right. The landscape is, in some ways, very, very different because public understanding of the issue has changed so radically. The way I've described it around the office is that we've moved slightly towards the mainstream, but the mainstream has largely caught up with us. And that might not have been our conscious goal at the outset, but it turns out that it's the way to win on this stuff. And in some ways, the landscape has not changed at all. And I was doing some cleaning at the office today, as you might imagine, came upon an issue of our newsletter from 12 years ago, on which the banner page 1 headline is "War on Food Stamps Declared." And it turns out the only, and it goes on to talk about a bill being proposed by Republican leaders of the House of Representatives of $20 billion to food stamps. So the only changes in that particular landscape are that the cuts are now 10 times as big, and a former Republican administration changed the name of the program from food stamps to the much more euphemistic Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So we still have our work cut out.
And I think that culturally, we have our work cut out for us because there seems like there's this continued rise of, individualism. And on the other hand, there's a growing movement that people are recognizing the need for systemic disruption and justice, right? But I do think that in moving forward, we have a lot of work to do, and we have to be in some ways stronger about the way we deal with the individualistic rhetoric. Yeah.
So let me throw a question back at you on as that landscape changes. As we try to contend with those negative trends, as we look at the giant public policy challenges in front of us right now, what do you think is it that can best motivate people and drive people and keep people in this work?
So I think we're already doing it, right? I think that people are drawn to this work because we believe that policy change is the answer. I think that people stay in this work because of our connections, right? There's something powerful about being surrounded by people who care this deeply, who show up every day, not with just outrage, though we have it, right? It's present, but with ideas and solution and humor. So I think, but something that I want to say that I think is really important, and I planned on talking about this a little later, but I do think we need to meet it with more aggressive messaging. We need to be more political. We need to be louder. We need to be clear about what's not working, because the systems are designed to not work. So I think it's really important as we move into this new phase that we move forward with strength and power.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about the current and presumably future challenge. Right now, we're in this transition. We're in this moment organizationally where, you know, I'm at the end of my shift and somebody else is at the start of their shift. And that can be very smooth. But what makes it a critical moment is not what's happening inside our office, but in the world around us, where the safety net for low-income people is at the greatest risk it has been perhaps since Franklin Roosevelt. It has been an object of political and media gamesmanship in an atmosphere that pretends that the outcome is not predetermined. And to some extent we buy into that by being obligated to raise our voices in objection to an outcome that may indeed be predetermined, right? The votes in the Senate and the votes in the House may not be changeable, but we persist in trying anyway, and that's why some of you in the room and some of our colleagues from the office were in front of Dave McCormick's office just today. And we're there on Friday, and we'll probably be there again next week. Because part of the challenge is constantly speaking truth to power. Part of it is to do that in ever more dynamic and creative ways. And so I wonder what your thinking is about what gives us hope for meeting those future challenges.
Sure, so this is loaded. Like I said, I think that the challenges demand us to take it even further. You know, continuing to be more aggressive in our messaging on policy response and solutions is going to be critical. I think, and I plan on continuing that, of course. That's wow. Something's behind me on that one. But I think that it also requires us to be, like Ken said, be more creative, be more innovative. And some of the ways that I see this organization growing in those spaces are, you know, being bold enough to fight for what's next, right? What are we building? I think we're going to continue, of course, to protect what is here at all costs, right? But what is next? You know, policies like guaranteed income aren't a far off dream. Like, they're absolutely necessary. I want to see Just Harvest focus our energy on building that, because we know right now we don't have the sympathetic, that's the nicest way to put it, administration to even be open to a policy like this. But we know that this type of policy making requires us to start locally. And a lot of people have started laying the groundwork for guaranteed income. But I think what's next for us is reimagining what this sort of policy looks like and stepping in to do the work so that we can build it, because when it's time, you know, we can take it to where it needs to be and grow it and change the system. It's broken. We need new solutions. So I think just reimagining what we need and is going to be a key part. I also think that you know, modernizing and being innovative means using digital tools and technology to break down barriers. Most of the barriers that we see are related to technological issues. I don't think we should shy away from that. I mean, I think that we need to push harder and use the tools that are available to make it easier for people to access benefits across the board. I also think some of the work that we're doing now in the work that we do creatively, I think we want to take a step further. You know, we have barely talked about food access, and this is one of the biggest things that we do. But I think it's, you know, us building food access solutions that are actually shaped by our neighborhoods and the people in them. Pittsburgh is such a specific, neighborhoods are so different, and every neighborhood needs different solutions. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So I would like to see us be more creative in that space especially. But, you know, being creative, being innovative, and modernizing are things that sound like such big things, but they're not. You know, I think that I will continue to build on the foundation and foundational values that this organization has and bring us to a space where we can continue to grow and make an even bigger impact.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
You know, it was a number of years, perhaps a dozen years ago or so, that we went through something of a rebranding at Just Harvest. We got rid of an outdated logo. We updated our mission statement. We stopped describing ourselves as an anti-hunger organization because it was time to talk about what we were for instead of what we're against. And so we are a food justice organization. And I think when you talk about universal basic income, when you talk about the system being designed not to work for low-income people, I think this is the core message going forward, that that we have to be forceful in saying precisely what it is we want. That we want food to be understood as a human right. That we want people to not have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. We want people to have sovereignty over the food supply in their own communities. We want people to have adequate incomes to meet their basic needs. And that until we have those things, we're going to continue to fight and move forward. Much wiser people than any of us at Just Harvest have been fighting this forward-looking fight for hundreds or thousands of years. And one of them wisely said, power concedes nothing without a demand. And we need to live by that.
Who was that?
Frederick Douglass, 1857.
I was waiting for a Frederick Douglass.
So it's 10 minutes to 7. We are a food justice organization, so we don't want to stand between you and some refreshments. I think we're going to wrap up. I did want to share one last insight before my work here is done. Advice in particular to my younger colleagues, which is all of them. But advice, I think, for all of us of any level of experience. And that's that everything I've learned about activism and organizing and advocacy can be learned by watching The Wizard of Oz. If you think hard about that movie, you will learn that together with our partners, we have more brains and heart and courage than we know. That the road is not a straight one, but if we stay on it, we're going to get to where we're going. That you have to always keep an eye out for the man behind the curtain. And most of all, you've had the power all along, my dear. All you had to do was learn that you do. Wait till next year.
One more thing, another guest. County Executive Sarah Navarro.
Hi. Ken, we knew this was a very special day for you, and I just want to thank you in my journey through the State House and now as County Executive. You and the team at Just Harvest have been there all along to work on justice-related issues, everything from trying to get an earned income tax credit at the state, to all the COVID work, to making sure that we could do a discounted fare program, which we made permanent at the county last year. You've been there to be a guide, to be a mentor, to be a moral compass as I've gone through my journey into politics, so I want to thank you for that. And I have a proclamation with a lot of whereases, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, because you all know how important this organization is, and you know how incredible a leader Ken Regal is. But the important part is, now therefore be it resolved, I, County Executive Sarah Navarro, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby declare June 30th, 2025 as Ken Regal Day. Cleaned up the Mets, so maybe next year we can have a call or something, they can have a rebound or something. But thank you, Ken.